Okay, great. Welcome back. Now we're going to talk about kind of a separate sub-theme with multinational corporations, and that is foreign direct investment. Okay, foreign direct investment. So what is foreign direct investment? Let's kind of over here a little. Foreign direct investment says, well, you've got a parent company, a multinational corporation, and they use or invest money with the goal of starting a foreign affiliate in a company, buying out a competitor or an affiliate in a foreign country, or possibly expanding into an affiliate that they already have in a foreign nation. Now, foreign direct investment is usually something that is seen for the long term. Okay, you think about it. You are typically buying facilities, you are buying equipment, you are investing in people and processes in a foreign country. You're in it for the long term if you do foreign direct investment. Now, the flip side to that is what we call portfolio investment, and that is what we call like the purchase of stocks and bonds in a foreign company by individuals or equity funds. Okay. Now, some of us, if any of you own stocks, may actually engage in portfolio investment. I can tell you that personally, I happen to own foreign company stocks in my retirement portfolio. Now, that's not always a good idea because if they're what we call an ADR, you also have to pay foreign tax and U.S. tax, but that's a subject for another class. Now, one of the most notable examples of portfolio investment is Norway's sovereign wealth fund. Okay? I don't know what all the statistics are right now, but I used to do a lot of research in corporate governance. And Norway's sovereign wealth fund, when I was doing my research, was what you might call a majority shareholder, I believe. And when I say majority, I mean that they typically own somewhere between 1 to 5% of, I think, almost like every S&P 500 company. They owned real estate, commodities. They owned all this stuff. And that was done so that the people of Norway would have a retirement. So it's kind of like how we have money set aside for Social Security. Well, they took their retirement money and they invested it. Now, they did this for a very important reason. It's what we call the resource curse. The resource curse basically means when a company or country, becomes very rich in a certain resource, you have rapid inflation. It seems like industry and productivity decline and things like that. The famous historical example, of course, is Spain. When Spain discovered the New World, they took all that gold back from the New World. Spain was a very wealthy country. They had one of the highest quality of lives in Europe for a very long period of time. But it seemed that the gold was not really invested in their future. It was invested in the present. And today, of course, Spain is probably not one of the richest countries in Europe, to put it mildly. Now, in the contemporary world, we also have a number of countries that rely heavily on oil, right? One of the countries where I used to work, oil had been heavily used to subsidize a variety of things in that country. So most of the citizens of this country, I believe, got $2,500 a month from the government. The citizens didn't do manual labor. They brought in immigrants to do dishwashing and dirty kind of jobs. And it was interesting when you went there. I mean, there was such a shortage of talent and educated people that they had to bring in foreigners to do that work too. So the people of that country weren't really producing anything. The whole country's wealth relied on oil. So that's another example of the resource curse. And Norway has decided to avoid that. Yes, they have a tremendous amount of oil, but they've taken those oil revenues and invested them through portfolio investment, through the Norway Sovereign Wealth Fund, and that money has been set aside for the retirement. Nonetheless, there are still aspects of the resource curse in Norway. You do have goods and services are extremely expensive. It is an expensive country to go to. But nonetheless, that was some way for them of mitigating the resource curse. So where does foreign direct investment flow? Well, it's roughly 50-50 between developing economies and developed economies. And again, it boils down, the reason being, with transaction cost economics. Yes, when you invest in a developing economy, you probably have lower material, production, and labor costs, but you have to search a lot longer to find a suitable supplier. And again, that's not just corporate culture. Are the terms of the contract good? You have to think in a lot of developing economies, do they have the brain power? Do they have the managerial talent and the expertise to produce some of the goods that you actually desire? Do they have the attention to detail? You hear a lot of stories, especially in toy manufacturing. They contract it out to some foreign country, and then there's lead paint in children's toys. Products are defective. I mean, you hear all sorts of horror stories, and again, that's one of the aspects of investing in countries that don't have a lot of managerial talent or expertise, not a lot of engineering, not a lot of quality control. Okay, so that ties into search cost. However, when you invest in a developed economy, you may be able to benefit from lower material costs. Your production and labor costs may wind up being somewhat similar, but the search costs will be dramatically less. Okay. Now again, why do we actually do foreign direct investment? Okay? Well, the same reason why you might actually make any sort of a domestic country a multinational company. The reasons are the same. First of all, you want to grow beyond your existing domestic market. You want to access new markets. When you start investing in a foreign country, when you start setting up operations in a foreign country, all of a sudden you have a totally new base of customers. That's huge. Okay? You can also say that it's because your domestic market is already saturated. Again, you think of a lot of your companies like Walmart or McDonald's and these kind of companies. Why in the world will they ever go overseas? Well, because there's a Walmart and a McDonald's almost everywhere in America. Why is a company like Starbucks expanding into a country like Italy and France that already has a very robust coffee culture? Well, quite frankly, they've saturated the U.S. market. That's what they need to do to continue to grow. And of course, creating efficiencies and lowering costs by moving production to a foreign country. Again, is it actually a good move or not? Refer to it from a transaction cost economics perspective, and that'll answer it. Now, it sounds, usually it's seen to be something pretty good when a domestic company goes overseas, but is it good for the host country when a foreign company comes in and begins operations? Well, you have to remember, first of all, multinational corporations exist to make a profit for their shareholders, and the interest of the local company may not always be first and foremost in their thoughts. Having said that, these investments can be great for local economies. They can result in the building of infrastructure. People can be given jobs. They can be given training that might not otherwise be available. But again, you have to tie it in. Is that corporation acting socially responsible or not? Which is something that we talked about in our previous lecture. Some countries also alter their taxation policies and their trade laws to make themselves more attractive for foreign direct investment from multinational corporations. So let's talk about some more negative effects of foreign direct investment. Well, for a host country, having a foreign conglomerate or a foreign multinational come into your market can overwhelm local competitors. And these foreign conglomerates can usually monopolize a local market. And we know that monopolies are usually not good for customers because it gives them fewer choices and greater price. Another problem, when a foreign company comes into a country, typically they have to repatriate their profits back to their host country to pay their shareholders. So while local residents may get jobs, they may get training, they may get wages, that money, those profits typically don't stay in that country. Social impacts can also be negative. Again, these foreign conglomerates with their kind of international managerial cultures can be a threat to traditional ways of life in their host countries. And of course, we all know, and you hear about this in the news, sometimes there are multinational companies that engage in human rights abuses. I mean, labor abuses. You hear about underpaying laborers. You hear stories about human trafficking. You hear about multinational companies poisoning their local environments because, again, they think that their host country won't ever find out about it. Okay, I'm looking at our time. We will continue with just a couple of additional things in our next video, and then that'll wrap up this lecture. Thank you.